All right, so anyhow, we'll go ahead and get started. And basically, this is about basically helping your clients to complete the TDS and the SPQ properly. Okay. As you know, a seller has to disclose many things about the property to the buyer of the property. And so, CAR came out with all these great forms for us to use to help the seller in doing that. Okay. And these documents have to be done by the seller, not you as the agent. So you shouldn't be touching them trying to complete them for the client. However, you can help them to, understand the document. You can explain to them and exactly what I just said. This is how they disclose many things. It kind of helps them. If there's anything else that they can think of about the property, they can, of course, add that to it. Now, for some reason, okay, let me move this a little bit. I'm going to share my screen here. I hope I can see my document. Okay. Oh boy. Where did my document go? Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this. Can someone just let me know really quick that you can see it? Yes, no?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. It seems to be different every time. Okay, so I have the SPQ in front of me here. So, and like I said, this document, the seller has to complete page 1 and 2. You cannot touch it. And even right now, when I'm in zip forms, it won't even let me, do anything to try to click a box. It says it's editable. The seller has to do it. Okay. But the points that I want to make out, I'm not going to, read through the entire document. There are just points that I want to point out to you, which is, main thing when sellers don't know, should I, say this, or is it, they're unclear if their response should be a yes or a no. I always refer back to the question here where it says, are you aware of? And then that kind of helps them because they're like, oh, I'm not for sure. And I'm like, well, are you aware of it right now? Are you aware, like 5A here, are you aware of, within the last 3 years, the death of an occupant, or even the next one, an order from a government health official? So that normally helps them. Okay, so that's one thing. And, and if they don't know, then it kind of means they're not aware right now. Excuse me. But the other thing is that I really want to point out is, you can't give your client all the disclosures and say, fill this out, and then, the client gives the disclosures back to you, and then you just, take them, put them in your file, or send them to the other side. You need to review these disclosures for your client and make sure they're correct. Because some of this, you may know from being in the property, and you want to make sure that they've completed everything. So, one of the big things that I see is maybe not all of the questions being answered. You should go back and say, hey, Mr. Seller, you missed question, 5H. Or so either, are you aware? You need to put yes or no. So go back and review the document for your client and make sure that, they have answered all the questions with either a yes or a no. If they have more explanation, they'll check the box here and they'll type out, or write in whatever else they want to add to that. Okay. So make sure that's getting done. And then of course they're going to initial each page. But just going through it, there's a lot, and there's a lot of questions here. So about repairs and alterations, you want to make sure, again, if this is a client you kind of been working with over time, and that maybe they've mentioned to you, oh yeah, we painted the property 6 months ago, or we had some kind of, whatever, alterations or maintenance done, and maybe you remember that, but they didn't put anything here. They didn't check, or maybe they put a no, they checked no, and and that was it. And you're like, wait, no, the last time we talked, you had this done. So you need to review the document and kind of help them through it. If there's anything that's incorrect, go back and have them revise it. Okay, so that's the main thing, making sure all the questions are checked off, reading through it and see, because there are some things you may know about just from speaking with them. You maybe, like I said, you knew that they painted the property, or they, last time maybe you called them for Christmas and they said, oh yeah, we just redid our bathroom a couple of months ago, and now it's a year later and they're selling. So there's little things you might be aware of, and maybe they didn't put it in the document. Okay. The other thing, any yeses that could be checked off, there's an area for an explanation. They need to explain the yeses. Okay, so we see people, they just check yes, no explanation. That's what that's for most of them. Maybe it'll say, to give the explanation underneath. Okay, so you want to make sure you do that. Um, there's a section about pets. If they had pets and they put no. So again, you really just need to review these documents for your client, not just hand them over. Okay. Now, these documents here, just so you know, the SPQ and the TDS both follow under inspections. So that goes along with your inspection contingency. Okay. So if you are on the buyer side, and you haven't received these yet, then you should not be removing contingencies on the inspection. Okay, so keep that in mind. All these reports and disclosures follow under inspection contingency. Okay, so just so you know that. And let's see, so going down, okay, there's a lot of questions about okay, well, I'll stop right here really quick. Condominiums, common interest development, some of this you may not know, or you may have a conversation with them about their HOA. Again, they need to answer to the best of their knowledge. And again, it's, are you aware? So like I said, there's a lot of times they'll say, well, I'm not sure what to put here. I just always say, well, are you aware of it, right now? And that kind of helps them to answer these questions. And this is a very good one here, also 14E about PACE liens, such as the HERO or other type of lien or loan they had done for any uh, renovations for the property. So when you're taking your listing appointment, make sure you ask about that. And it is your duty to explain these documents to them. So you can't just hand these to your client and say, fill them out. You got to remember, I always say CYA, send them an email. Send an email that's covering yourself saying, hey, regarding the documents that I explained to you, the disclosures that we discussed, do you have any further questions? And then now you have a trail showing that, you've emailed them and you asked, you mentioned that you did explain the documents to them and you asked if they had any questions. Another one that this here is, to me, kind of a biggie about, neighborhood noise or nuisance, because this is the one where some sellers, they don't want to say if they've had a nuisance with a neighbor or any issues at the property, and they're a little bit like, worried because they're trying to sell it. Doesn't matter. You have to disclose it. And what do we say? Who's going to tell it anyway? Anyhow, the neighbor, right? The neighbor's always going to tell. So make sure you are advising them properly as well. For liability issues, they need to disclose every single thing. Okay. Let's see, governmental things. Okay, they should be able to get through this pretty easily. And then there's a section for other. Okay, and this is regarding other reports and disclosures. And I do refer to this one because I had an agent who asked if they had a report. Let's say maybe they were going to sell their property 5 years ago and they never sold it, but they have a home inspection report from 5 years ago. They actually have it. They know where it is. and they have it. This section here, 17A, says reports, inspections, disclosures, warranties, maintenance recommendation, estimates, studies, surveys, or other documents pertaining to the condition or repair of the property or any improvement on this property in the past, now or proposed, or easements, encroachments, or boundary disputes affecting the property, whether oral or in writing, and whether or not provided to the seller. And then see here in bold, if yes, provide any such documents in your possession to the buyer. That is your answer right there, right? That's a yes. If you have it in your possession, then it goes to the buyer. Now, the part two of the agent's question was, well, it has all, they were worried because it had all, these repair items on there, but they already went through and corrected everything, years later, they repaired everything. Doesn't matter. You have the report, you can give the report, and then you can make a disclosure that, all these items were done. So it's just you have a report in your possession. You don't want to look like you're withholding information, but you can even draw out an addendum. You can say, this is what we did to the property after the report dated, whatever. Okay, and then after that, any occupant on the property smoking on or in the property. Very important that they answer that truthfully. Okay, any past or present known material facts. That's pretty much the last question. It's giving them a last time to disclose any known material facts or other significant items that could affect the value of the property, okay? Not otherwise disclosed to the buyer. So you want to make sure that's done. Okay, so again, the main thing about these disclosures is I want to point out, you don't just hand it to them. You need to look them over when your seller returns the disclosures back to you. If there's anything missed, have them correct it, okay? Also another point, when a lot of people ask, hey, we got the disclosures from the listing side and we noticed they're more than 6 months old. Somehow somebody came up with a 6-month thing, and I've been hearing that for years, but I have confirmed there's no time frame. It's just if they are old to you guys, to the buyer side, you can simply ask the other side. You can say, hey, we noticed your seller did these disclosures, 7 months ago. Can you just ask the seller to look them over, see if everything is still the same? If the disclosure is still the same, then just, let us know. But there could be something different. Maybe he did just, paint something last month, or, did new custom whatever just a month ago. And then he can update it. He or she can update it. So that's all you have to do with that. If your client feels the disclosure, or you feel the disclosures are, these are done so many months ago, just ask them. And again, do it in an email. So the agent can reply back in an email saying, oh no, I checked with the seller, everything's the same. Now you have that in writing, right? In case something comes up, you have that. Okay. So now I hope I didn't lose my TDS because I had it up. And what the heck happened to it? Let me see if I can get it here. So while I'm doing this, is there a question from anyone? Hit the wrong thing. 1 second. I need to move this, please. Thank you. If anyone has a question right now, would be a good time. All right, so okay, you can see my TDS now, right? Yes, no, somebody? Yuna, can you see the TDS?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so in TDS, you guys should be very familiar with this. Pretty simple, but it's a very, very, very important document. Just so you know, attorneys have told me, with all the cases, they always refer back. Of course, the RPA, the purchase agreement, is the #1 document, right? Then after that, it's probably the TDS. This is very, very, very important. Talks about what's, remaining at the property or transferring to the new buyer, and key is the name of the document, transfer disclosure statement. You are disclosing to the buyer what's being transferred, right? Again, look it over. I've seen TDS where they don't have this marked, whether the seller is or is not occupying the property. Why not? You need to answer. And then another thing about all the boxes here and all of the items that they either have or not have. I've seen where maybe they checked off something they don't even have. That would be incorrect. Do you want the buyer to receive this document and say, hey, you guys checked off, that I had burglar alarms and actually I moved in and I don't. Well, guess what? Maybe you owe me a burglar alarm. So, go over it. I cannot stress that, enough. So you have to really go over it, okay? Just look at everything what they check off. Make sure, if they're checking off air conditioning, they actually have AC. Okay. Another argument I've seen, simple arguments, but number of remote controls for the garage opener. They put 2 and buyer only received 1. Guess who had to go and buy another one? The agent. Okay. Not something extremely, extremely expensive. But it's the point. You're going to take care of that, right? Because your client's going to be looking at you like, what? We closed. I don't care about a, garage opener or whatnot. So you're going to have to take care of it if the client doesn't, basically. But I have seen that happen. So yes, they do argue about it. So again, just remember your client has to complete the TDS, the page 1 and 2. You can't touch it until page 3. But back on page 2 here, again, is asking the seller, are you aware? If they're not sure, just, ask them the question, well, are you aware of any significant defects or malfunctions in any of the following? And so just make sure they're completing this, they have to check yes or no, and then go through these boxes here. And if they have anything there, if they want to add something, then they can put it in here. All right. And then in section C, and everything is basically, are you aware? So it really kind of helps them to just think for a moment so they can complete it. So Carol, you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. So in C1 is asking, are they aware of any substances, materials, or products which may be an environmental hazard? Okay. And so they just yes or no for that. There are about 3 or 4 questions that are mostly marked yes whenever there is a homeowners association. And question number 2, features of the property shared in common with adjoining landowners, such as wall fences and driveways. That could be one that might be checked when you have, someone just on the other side of the wall, right? And then there's a few more. So number 11, number 12, CC&Rs or other deed restrictions. Okay, CC&R. So if you're selling a condo, right, they would have CC&Rs. And on number 13, they would have a homeowners association. So these should definitely be checked off, as well as 14, any common area facilities, if they have it, pool, tennis courts, walkways, anything with interest with others. So yeah, so those would be checked off if you have an HOA, okay? And very important here, any notices of abatement, any lawsuits against the seller threatening or affecting this real property, okay, or any claims. Now, sometimes they have a claim with, the HOA may be aware of a claim that, against the property, and maybe the seller isn't. So maybe seller's going to say no, because remember, the question again is, are you aware? So the HOA could be aware, maybe the seller isn't. And so he could say no if he's not aware of it. And they could make a disclosure here. You can, buyer can check with the HOA regarding any lawsuits or any pending, litigation against the complex. Okay. And then in section D, this is where the seller is certifying that the property as of the close will be in compliance with the health and safety code by having operable smoke detectors. Okay, you want to make sure prior to close, smoke detectors are in the property, as well as a carbon monoxide detector. Okay, and on number 2, seller certifying that the water heater and water heater tank will be braced, anchored, or strapped. Okay, and then both parties are initialing here. Do not forget the initials here, because of course your compliance person may send it back. So make sure the clients don't leave that part out. Now on 3, this is your section. And you notice that it changed. It's not grayed out. See, I can't do anything here. It doesn't let me do anything because the seller has to complete that portion. But now here on page 3, okay, under agent's inspection disclosure, you are able to add, text here. So now agent's inspection disclosure. Okay, so first you have 3 boxes here. The attached AVIT or agent notes no items, or agent notes the following item. Okay, it's okay if you checked see AVIT and you also said agent notes the following item as well, but it looks like it probably only let you check one. So I normally check, and then you can still just go ahead and write, or some people check the bottom and then they'll just type see AVIT. Either way, it's fine as long as it gets done. Okay, but very important, you as the agent, you have to perform your inspection disclosure. Okay, so you can, if you have just a little bit to write in, you can do it here. But if you're going to attach the AVIT, make sure you put see attached. And the AVIT is kind of an aid to help you go through the property, go through each area and make sure you're disclosing properly. Okay, and same as the other side, the problem is um, I hate when it's blank, like let's say an agent just didn't really do anything and they sign their name. That is not correct. That is not correct. That is not correct. So make sure, check the box. If you're going to say see AVIT, or the box says see attached AVIT, then that's fine as long as they did an AVIT. But sometimes an agent will just sign here. And I've seen it even from other offices. All they did was sign and they didn't even attach an AVIT. They didn't put anything here. That is incorrect. An agent must give a visual inspection of the property. And you have to keep in mind that, again, if your file happens to be one that goes to court, how does a judge know that you've been in the property if you didn't perform your visual inspection or you didn't make a note of what you saw when you were there? So that's why the AVID and the section of the TDS for your disclosure is very helpful for you, okay? If you are representing both sides, you do not need to do both these sections, which it says right here, to be completed. Let me highlight it. To be completed only if the agent who has obtained the offer is other than the agent above. Okay, so that's why then this section will be the buyer's side. But if you represent both the buyer and seller, you only have to complete the top portion. You do not have to do the bottom one. Okay. And that was mainly it. Just, short to the point. And again, my point is, what is my point? To review the document for your clients, right? Review the documents. If there's anything missing, ask them to complete it, to fill in the missing part. You're the professional. You want to look like, you know what you're doing. And if you were receiving documents that were not completed from the other side, what would you think? You're like, oh, this is not even completed. The seller didn't answer all the questions, right? So then when you're on that side, you're representing the seller, you make sure it's done properly. So you can send the documents over properly, have them done, move on to the next phase of your transaction. So people aren't forwarding documents back to you saying that they are incomplete. Okay, and so that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions about the TDS or SPQ?
I have a question.
Yes.
If you're the listing agent, do you need to fill out both Avid and this TDS?
Okay, so this is the thing. The TDS is required. The Avid is actually not required. Okay. The Avid is just to help you do that inspection. Because see how they put, bedroom 1, bedroom 2. It kind of just helps you think when you're walking through the property. You're like, oh, okay, bedroom 1, I can note this here. That's all. So, and truthfully, you can actually just even put everything on an addendum. It really doesn't matter as long as it gets disclosed to the buyer. That is the main point. They just want to make sure you're disclosing things to the buyer. So again, on your page 3, if you had nothing to note, I'm sorry, yes, right here in the middle, if you said agent notes no items for disclosure, technically, you would be done, but it doesn't sound like you really walked through the property. I think it would, be best for you, right? And for your client, you need to walk through the property and just note anything. If you don't see anything, if what you want to disclose would fit on these 3 or 4 lines here, you can put it here and be done with it. Okay? You don't have to use the Avid form. Again, that's just to help you in making the disclosure. So, did I answer do you understand now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other question, guys? If not, again, if you think of something later, you can call me, email, text me, okay? So, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.